When we solve a quadratic using difference of two squares, this is a type of factoring. The first term needs to be a perfect square, as does the second. And in the middle, there needs to be a minus sign, because it says the difference of two squares. So two perfect squares, and you only have two terms. So, for example, if you were given x squared minus 64, then you would have two factors. So you take the square of x squared and you get x, and you take the square of 64 and you get 8. Now, one factor needs to be plus, one needs to be minus, doesn't matter which one comes first. The reason why it's the same factor twice, except one is plus, one is minus, because if I FOILed this out, I would have x squared plus 8x minus 8x minus 64. So one is always positive, one is always negative, because we need these two middle terms to cancel out, so we only have two terms in our original problem. Now, we're going to go a little bit further in this unit, and we're going to actually solve this. So it needs to be set equal to 0 to be able to solve this problem. So if I continue to set it to equal to 0, then I'm going to ask you, alright, for the first factor, what makes this 0? Then I'm going to ask you what makes this 0. And since one is plus, one is minus, we're going to have two separate answers because there's two factors here. And since we're multiplying these two, it doesn't matter what the other value of the other term is, because if one of these guys is 0, then anything times 0 gives you that 0. So essentially you're doing two little problems. X plus 8 equal to 0, and you're going to do x minus 8 equal to 0. So I would subtract 8, and on this one x would equal negative 8, and over here I'd add 8 and x equals 8. So our answer is x equals 8 and negative 8. You could also write it like this, plus or minus 8. Just remember, plus or minus means that there's two answers. It is coincidence that it is the opposite of what you see here, because we're going to, when you solve a problem, you subtract, which is the opposite of this addition problem. Let's look at another example. 9x squared minus 121. So I have two factors. I'm going to take the square of the first one, which is 3x, and the square of the second one, which is 11. So I have plus 11 and I have minus 11. Now, again, we're going to do two little mini problems, equations I should say. I'm going to subtract 11 and then divide by 3. So x is going to equal negative 11 over 3 for this one. So over here on this right side, you know that it's going to be positive 11 over 3. So there's a little trick to keep in mind. This is what I always do. I take this 3 and I put it as a fraction under 11, so it's technically x minus 11 over 3, so that you know to make this equal to 0, x would have to equal positive 11 over 3. So here's one of our answers, here's the second.